So good morning, I'm Judy Ann Files. Welcome to Forum. It's nice to see you, especially on this drizzly, chilly morning where we're all really thinking it's might going to be winter, right? So thank you for being here. Forum, as you know, is there are four of us who organize and do this. And so this morning, Kathy Healers and Phoebe Benziger and myself are here. If you have any questions about Forum, the format, whatever, please ask one of the three of us. We have cards. If you're not on our email list, we'd love to have you get on that list. There are about 600 people who are on that list. Obviously, 600 don't show up every Wednesday morning, but we're also, now that William Woody from the city of Montrose videos all of our presentations, we know that there are a lot of people who are watching them at their leisure from their home. So please feel free to do that. You get the information. If you get our emails, I'll tell you how to do it, but you just go to the City of Montrose into their YouTube videos. Okay? This morning, we have the pleasure of having these two gentlemen, Paul Gottlieb and Jerry Severson. Brief history on both of them, even though I've known both of them an awfully long time. Jerry Severson has been with the Montrose Sheriff's Posse for 47 years. And during those 47 years, he worked for the city of Montrose. And I think he did a little bit of firefighting in there somehow. Yeah, Paul Gottlieb is the owner and operator for Olathe True Value Hardware Store, and he's been on the Sheriff's Posse for 40 years. I know they have a whole bunch more about Sheriff's Posse than I do, even though I've had conversations with Gene Millard. Okay? So please welcome these gentlemen this morning.
I'm going to deviate a little different what Judy Ann said a moment ago. She said, do you remember? Well, Judy Ann, do you remember 40 years ago when we used to have talk to Montrose for breakfast?
Oh.
Well, I found something, and I have the sheriff here. And did you know that Judy Ann was a super cop? And she had a water coaster, so I'm going to ask the sheriff if he would serve the warrant.
You don't have to spend any time in jail, so we want you to have this. This is Paul Gottlieb's idea, just to, so I don't get the dog.
It took me 40 years to get back at you, Judy.
So Paul and I had some interesting times, along with my husband and a neighbor and a few people, during the 1982 City Centennial. You know, we did a lot of things during Centennial, and that's where that came. I became a Keystone Cop during the week of Centennial. Paul was doing his thing in Olathe. And one time there was this old jail that was erected for the city of Montrose, that we put people who didn't do the Centennial wardrobe or whatever. They didn't follow the protocols for the week. We put them in jail. Well, only Paul and his group came and stole our jail. And you went back and forth, what, Ralph, 2 or 3 times? It was even at our house for a while. So we made a big deal out of being interesting Centennial cops. So thank you.
Now we'll get back to the program. Montrose Sheriff's Posse been serving the community since Microphone, sorry about that. Since 1964, and I know it was before that, but they were incorporated in 1964. Why do we exist? Well, Colorado statutes basically said that the sheriff is responsible for coordination of search and rescue operations within the county, as well as the sheriff is the fire marshal of the county, so that kind of covers most of our duties. Our mission is to provide search and rescue, wildland firefighting, social services for the, security services for the sheriff of Montrose County. In 1990, we received the 501c3, and we are a nonprofit organization. All of us are volunteers, no paid. We have 2 divisions. Do I have to use this?
Yes.
Yes. We have 2 divisions, 25 members on the east and about 12 on the west end of Montrose County. Members' background go from laborers, business owners, professionals, ranchers, educators, retired law enforcement, retired firefighters, and veterans. To be a member, you basically have to be a citizen, at least 21 years old, no felony convictions, and if you were a veteran, honorably discharged. The only skills you really need is to have a driver's license, willing to participate in call-outs and training, and attend all the training and learn new skills. There's a list of the hours that we put in each year. If you see one mouse, what do you see? You see 10 mice. You have 10 mice. Well, there's some people who never fill out timesheets. So our hours are probably twice that, but that's the ones we have to report. New members being sworn, either at or in. Those are our call-outs for this past year. And many of our call-outs are not as severe or in number as they used to be because of the cell phones. Every cell phone has a GPS in it, and we even get calls where people say, I'm at this GPS location, come get me. We have training sessions basically once or twice a month, and we cover areas such as first aid, CPR, firefighting, shelter deployment, brush truck operations, GPS mapping and tracking, helicopter crews and landing zones, emergency vehicle drive-in and use, traffic control, OHVs, and civil air patrol. We work with a lot of groups. We have a lot of specialized training, advanced first aid, NIMS and ICS, which are systems, SAR management. A new one that we're working is called Topo, and Jerry will explain that a little bit later. Communications, swiftwater, rescue, ICE, and many others. We assist the Montrose Sheriff's Office, the City of Montrose, Montrose, Olathe, and Natarita Nuclear Fire Districts, BLM, National Park Service, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, Civil Air Patrol, and the counties of Delta, Montrose, San Miguel, and Ouray. We have mutual aid with these people. Okay.
I thought you were doing good, Paul. This is just a training session we had in our building down on North Grand. I believe this individual is doing CPR and first aid training. He's from VOTEC in Delta. Julianne was talking about CPR classes. Here's ours last year. That's a thing we have to stay current in. We have a trainer from the sheriff's office that comes over and helps us, John Feckerly, and puts a class on for us. Just continuation of the class. We had a couple people try to do it online. It's just not the same. You got to do it in person to really get the feel for it. Babies. This gizmo is a, you've heard of aircraft going down and having an ELT emit a signal. This is a receiver that we can receive that on. This is a handheld device. We also have a device that will mount in a vehicle and track down that signal. It's, I've stood right, well, in a building across the street and picked up a signal on the plateau with it. That's how accurate or how sensitive it is. These gentlemen are from the Colorado Department of Public Safety and Fire Prevention, putting on a fire refresher class. Every spring we have to do a fire refresher class to stay current and make sure we are up to speed on everything that's changed. Some more of the same class. Fire shelters, everybody's heard about fire shelters. The green ones, the orange ones are known for just practice shelters. And everybody has to take part in this. And one of the terms is shake and bake. You hope you don't ever have to really get to the real shelter. But it's good practice. We do it in the building. Some places do it with the fan blowing so you can't never catch up with your filter and it's blowing away, so you gotta learn how to catch it. This goes on into, I think it's a two-part class here. I see a couple of little short ropes that are practicing knots for rope operations. And the Stokes basket laying on the table there, I will believe in the next slide. This is also turns into a patient packaging class, how to properly get the patient in there. This is just a rigging on the front of a Bronco that we had tied on and doing some rope training in the building. We have somebody packaged there, getting ready to put a person on a backboard and package them in a Stoke. It seems kind of simple, but it really isn't. It's something you really need to practice once in a while to be up to speed on it and make sure you got all the tricks of the trade working for you. Radios is a money gobbling operation. This picture, this is in our office. This is the radios we have on standby for our use. The radios on the lower shelf here are new in a sense that they replaced the radios in the back. The front radios, we were lucky we purchased 21 of them, and they're $6,500 a piece at that time.
Wow.
However, we were able to get a grant from the Colorado Department of Health. It was a 90-10 grant, so we were able to do that. The radios, back up, Paul. The radios that we have here are dual band, so they'll cover 800 systems and VHF systems. And throughout our community, there's still people on VHF that we need to talk to, and there's still people on 800, so we were lucky to get that capabilities. The radios are the same as what the sheriff uses in their business operation. If you're standing, of course the sheriff has a new one, but that's okay.
It's all.
Here, you want to talk to the world? If for some reason the sheriff wanted to talk to somebody downtown Denver, he could get on the radio and talk to them. That's how well they work. But on the other hand, there's a lot of places on the plateau that are dead. They're just in holes and you can't talk to the rest of the world. We struggled for a long time with the old radios, the VHF radios, and we got a couple repeaters up and we got them going, and then they switched to these. But they're really good. Another capability is if we were to go across Colorado somewhere to another county, eastern Colorado, San Miguel, wherever, there's a group of channels in there that we can switch to, and we're all on the same radio frequency and channel. So and that goes statewide, which is really great in the sense that we can go anywhere and talk to somebody.
It beats the tin can and the string.
Back when I first started, we had 3 little handheld radios that maybe it would go a mile or 2, and that's about it. And they're huge. Usually once a year we have Care Flight come down to our building and do LZ training plus helicopter safety. This is the one off of Montrose Hospital. The crew comes down, everybody goes through it, they get a chance to sit inside and buckle up. Time-wise, they might go for a ride. This is still part of the training. I think the sheriff should put one of these in his budget, but we haven't been able to pull that off yet. And I think the main reason was they didn't want me to be the pilot. This is several years ago. We did a body recovery over on the Dolores River, just below the hanging flumes. And they cleaned that area out where that helicopter's sitting. We picked up the deceased person and flew him out of the canyon. Montrose Regional Dispatch, in a sense, takes care of us. They're the agency we use for dispatching. They dispatch us, and it's important they keep track of us, so it's kind of hectic when 25 of us all call in and say we're en route. But they do, Wesco, as they're known, takes really good care of us. We had an opportunity, it looks like at Christmas time last year, to go over and meet some of the dispatchers and kind of tour the facility. This is Mandy, she's in charge of the Wesco dispatch and kind of giving us a short class on dispatch. So we interact with Montrose Fire Protection District a lot. These guys came down and we're doing water rescue training with them. They have a lot more training than we do in this sense, and we're just trying to pick up some of their tricks and go over some of the equipment. And we jump back to winter. This was 4 years ago, Paul? About 4 years ago, we got a new toy, and we were able to do this with, we call it DOLA grant, which is a 25-cent fund that comes on your hunting and fishing licenses. We applied for grant money towards the purchase of this side-by-side with tracks, and they funded part of it, and then they turned around and funded the whole thing for us. It really was a lot of money worth, and we really appreciate the grant that we were able to buy this with. First day we took it out and tried it in the snow. That guy that was driving, he must have bumped the four-wheel drive lever or switch, because when he goes around this tree pretty soon he gets stuck. And but you know, you got to take them for a test drive, make sure they're going to work, and it works really great. This is a new six-wheeler that we purchased this year. We weren't as fortunate to get the full grant money. We got about $7,000 towards the purchase of it. It was on. It took us about 8-9 months to get it because of all the supply issues and so forth. It's a six-wheeler, and I'll show you here pretty soon what we replaced another six-wheeler with it. This one here, the one in the front, it was a '97 model, I believe, and we were able to replace it with the newer one, and there's no comparison.
We're still waiting for the tracks for the new one.
Yeah, the new one does have a set of tracks coming for it, so we'll have 2 winter machines. This is over in Peach Valley area. I believe we were back in there looking for somebody. We jumped to fire training. This is a picture of one of our old trucks. Learning how to make it work and pump and so forth. The one on the right is a new slip-in unit that we have. We just got it last year. And here's our 2 new trucks, 07 and 08, and that's really new for our trucks. This unit here was purchased, it just slides in, we wired it in place, and away we went. This lady donated a considerable amount of money towards the purchase of that slide-in unit, and with her donation, we were able to pull it off and make it work. This is a couple years ago, National Park Service on Blue Mesa offered a winter water rescue training class. And I think we had 4 or 5 people go up and attend that and take part in it. It's quite an experience to jump off in that lake when it's 0 outside and ice and so forth. GPS training, this is a handheld unit. I think we probably had an item stashed under that tree and they found it. Okay, this is a rescue we did here several years ago. Paul mentioned about using your cell phone and calling for help. Well, the hunter up here where it says Lost Hunter, he had cell service called dispatch, and we were able to tell where he was at. But he had no idea how to get out of there, and he was just exhausted. He couldn't get out of there. For your information, the blue line coming down the other side is the 25 Mesa Road. This is the turnoff to Lee's Reservoir, and he was back in here. This is the tracks that we had on a GPS.
What we can do is take a GPS and put them onto the computer, and I'll take Jerry's and mine and on the sheriff's, and we can show where we've been. So if we have an area we haven't covered, it'll show up on our map.
We'll get into a new system here, I think the next slide. This is the next slide. This is one we did about a month ago. We're back to 25 Mesa Road, Lee's Reservoir. And these people drove in here in the afternoon. You can see their vehicle up here. They were in a car stuck in a mud hole with a flat tire. And when they turned off, there was a sign there that said Mont, and they thought it meant Montrose. Well, it meant Monitor Mesa. And if you ever been from there to there, it's not a car road. They spent the night walking, a man and his wife and 2 dogs, and they walked over to here 14 and a half miles later. And I guess that morning they finally called dispatch and says, we're lost, we need help, we don't know. Here it is at noon on a perfectly good day, and we're trying to figure out how the family got lost. Well, it all added up when we got there. Let's go back, Paul. We have a new system with the Posse now that operates off of everybody's cell phone, and unfortunately I had to give up my flip phone and get a new phone. But with the system we have, that Cal Topo subject that Paul mentioned, they can sit in the office and track our cell phones, and as long as everybody has them turned on and in the right mode, they'll track you, and that's how we got to this guy, the family, I'm sorry. That morning, or that afternoon, we went in, and I knew about where they were at, and I kept wanting to turn right and go down this fence line, and these guys in the office are going, no, don't do that. No, we want to go that way. We went back and went their way. What would have happened was we would have been about 300 feet above them on a cliff, no way to get down there. But they could see that in the office and they could track where we were at. The good part of it is if you lose cell phone coverage, it tracks it until you get there, and then until you get service again, and then it go ahead and enters it into the computer.
Each person cell phone registers. I know we put a label on it. Each cell phone registers. So Jerry, we have his Posse number, and Bill, we have his Posse number, and Don, his Posse number, and we can see where they're at. And we actually, back at our headquarters, we could see them traveling in the wrong direction, and they would not have known it, so we just called them, and of course they have to trust in us. But we can see the whole picture.
This is later that afternoon, we got involved in a search assisting the city PD, and I can't tell for sure, Paul, the one on the left, I think is areas that were covered by our members. We had like 15 people out that night, and here's these tracks going everywhere. And so we were able to keep track of everybody. We knew what had been covered, what hadn't been covered, and where we needed to go. Okay, this is the picture when we were in town that night. All the red stuff and yellow stuff is where we've been.
And each person had a group had a different color, so they could see where they were at.
We used it pretty extensive that night just to make sure we covered everything. We had an individual go missing. Family members were looking for him. Everybody was concerned about something might have happened. Unfortunately, there was something that happened. This is going up the High Mesa Road off the Little Cimarron. He was on the edge of the road, fell, and tumbled down the hill quite a ways and passed away down there where he ended up under this log. We were called to retrieve the body up out of there. We had a pretty good turnout. We even had the undersheriff come help us. A matter of getting loaded in the Stokes basket, and you can see the two ropes here on the bottom. One's a pull line and another's a belay line, just a safety line to make sure if something happens to one, we have double coverage there. Getting them all tied off and ready to go. These guys were a little bit unhappy. They were coming up the steep part of the hill, and I had them stop so I could take a picture of it. They needed a breather. Afterwards, you got a lot of extra gear and rope and equipment to take care of, and put everything away and get ready for the next one. But you can't do that until you have a short debriefing, what could have worked better, or what could have went wrong, or how we can improve it. This is a search we did over by Mayor. One thing I was going to point out is we've done activities from the top of Grand Mesa to the top of Red Mountain to Utah, and over in the May area. Once in a while we'll get into Gunnison County. So it's just not Montrose. We just, if another agency calls for our help with the approval of the sheriff, we'll be there. We went over to Mayor. We had a gentleman missing overnight over there that had possibly some medical issues. And it was early in the spring. We got over there and split up and started looking for him, and he lit a fire so we could find him. Well, that was good. We also had a Civil Air Patrol aircraft up flying with one of our members in it, and they spotted the smoke, and he took off, and pretty soon there was the second fire. And it was super dry that spring, and we had some fire issues after we got him out of there. We tried to contain and put out what fire we could. Crawford Fire Department showed up, and also they did just a straight water drop on it. Felix from Olathe came over. But it was quite a jungle and quite a mess. If you start a fire so we can find you, stay with it. You know, there's the whole thing about if your car gets stuck, stay with the car. Just another debriefing after that situation. We had a fire over in the Sanborn Park area. This fire was, we're parked on private property on this park, about 50 feet, 60 feet the other side of the truck is National Forest. It actually was a lightning caused fire, hit a barbed wire fence, went down the fence line, down the post and started a fire. And they did burn a little camp trailer and some other stuff in there. We're over there just doing mop up and making sure it was out. Mop up the fun part, making sure everything's out.
If you notice, they're all wearing yellow gear, and that's required. It's Nomex. And if you notice, on the one fire, the fellow was wearing city clothes. We went out on a search, not on a fire. But to be on a fire, we're required to wear protective gear.
We were pretty fortunate here. We had a good water supply, so we used lots of water. We spent a couple of days up on Sanborn Park, came back, don't tell the city, we're still in the water other hiding. We're getting ready for the next one. Over in the west end, it's a whole different world with all the canyons and so forth. We had a missing person over there, and like Paul mentioned earlier, we have about 12 people that are over there that belong to the sheriff's posse. It's not uncommon for them to run short of people, and we'll end up over there helping them. Unfortunately, it takes us a long time to get there. This guy left Nukla, and family and everybody started looking for him. We went over, I think the second day or something, I'm not sure. And I don't know if you can see it, but the highway sits right here, 141. This is his car right there. He kind of straightened out a curve and ended up in the river. He survived that crash. I think it was his grandson floating the river in a kayak spotted the car. We're sitting on 141 here waiting for a helicopter out of Moab. Their care flight came over, sat down on the highway and loaded this gentleman, took him to St. Mary's. That's something you just got to do in the West End if available. Long trip to Grand Junction and an ambulance. This is back over in the Dobie's Beach Valley. We got a call from Olathe Fire Department for assistance with a motorcycle accident. We're trying to get from point A to point B, and you'll see here in a minute why it was so hard to get there. We're on this point here. You can see the helicopter in the middle of the picture. Go to the next one, Paul. That's where the helicopter is. All we have to do is figure out how to get there. And they had enough people by the time we got close. They had extricated the lady out of there and had her loaded in the helicopter. This is this spring over by Pinion, going down the old Highway 90 road. The West End got a call. They had a side-by-side that rolled off here with 2 victims in it. They had quite a time getting those 2 out of there. Falcon Road Search, I don't know how many of you are familiar with what's, and I apologize, all I know him is the Pallet Man. I don't really have his name, but you'd see him around Montrose hauling pallets to his place. We searched that place a couple of times. This is the last time we were in there with the investigators. We did a briefing on what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. This is out on Falcon Road where this gentleman's residence was. The sheriff's office sent up a drone and flew the whole area, which you can really get an overall picture of what's going on. And this is some of the search area we had. In some of the adobes, there's just some little caves or washout spots back in also. It was a tough place to cover everything. We covered a lot of it. And unfortunately, when they started cleaning up the place and they found remains of somebody, and then they finally verified that was him. He was just off the main road a little ways under some pallets. And we'd been by him several times. You would think that you could smell something or whatever. The whole place was so bad you couldn't differentiate between this smell and that smell. The gentleman called in and needed assistance getting down the 25 Mesa Lee's Reservoir area. This is some of the oak brush and so forth that we went through to get to him. It was pretty brushy. Another trip we went to, this is a staging area on Peach Valley, and assisted with Lakes of Fire. They had a motorcycle accident victim, and we assisted bringing him out. This is unfortunately another assist. This was in the Dry Creek area, off of, I believe, West Transfer Road. And this guy, him and one of his relatives had been hiking, and he had unfortunately had a heart attack and passed away. We're just bringing him back up to where the road was.
This is it.
Okay, we got a question when we were asked to put this on about spot locators and personal location beacons. This is the middle fork of the Cimarron. And if you're familiar with the middle fork, you come across the bridge and you turn and go up the middle fork, and then you get to where you kind of drive into the canyon. There's always a really good camp spot right there. We got one of these location beacons that came into Wesco Dispatch and said they needed help. So we responded up that way. We thought, we pinpointed on the map. We thought, wow, this is going to be simple. It's right there in that campground. We got it made.
How cold was it here?
It was really cold. Hunting season. What happened is this guy was hunting. He fell off the cliff and broke his rifle in 2 or 3 places on the way down. His wife made it out. She went for help. Well, she's the one in the camp down here saying help. So we thought it was there at the camp. Well, it wasn't. It was back up the road 2 or 3 miles across the creek and up on the hillside. And we were able to kind of track her tracks out of there and go back in. I believe this is where they were packaging him, and he landed in some more water to make it worse. He fell from about under that sign. It's kind of hard in the dark to take a picture like that, but Montrose Fire was up there with the ambulance crew. They sent a crew, because this is in Gunnison County, they sent a crew from Gunnison, which actually came out of Crested Butte to assist us. And we were able to get him out. The fire chief called for a helicopter. They couldn't get a helicopter that night because the weather conditions between here and there were too bad. Over where we were in the big Cimarron area, the stars are out, and we were kind of frustrated because we couldn't get a helicopter. So they took him by ambulance to Montrose, and then he went on. He was from Grand Junction anyway. He ended up in St. Mary's. I don't know the extent of his injuries, but he had what I call the broken body syndrome. We're always willing and able to help other counties. This is on LaRue Creek in Delta County. An older gentleman went hunting and never came back to camp. We went over and helped them see if we could find him. We didn't. They found him later on. The big argument that day was when we got on scene that morning, everybody has a temperature gauge in their car. It tells you the outside temperature. Well, the argument was it 0 or 1 above? You know, we never could get that cleared out. We assist different agencies. This is a DOW officer with I believe an elk laying on the ground behind him. Guy swore up and down he shot it on this side of the divide road, and the animal died on the other side of the divide road, and the whole thing was kind of not a good situation. So as you come down the south divide road between Davewood and Highway 90, or the old Highway 90, there was a gentleman that got stuck in the snowbank. We actually went by his vehicle when we were looking for somebody else, and he got out of his vehicle and was going to walk to town, and he never did make it. This is a group effort between Montrose, Uray, and I believe a search dog from Cortez came over to help us. This is an assist with the Latha PD looking for a gentleman that walked away from Colorado Care Center. We put a big operation on that day. And then several years ago, you might remember the gentleman that fell in or drowned in the South Canal. That's just some pictures of searching the South Canal.
Who's the one with the red shirt?
The guy in the red shirt, we won't mention the undersheriff's name because that'd give it away, but he got in trouble by the safety officer because he didn't have a life jacket on. But anyway, we made it the whole day. Just searching some more of the South Canal. We have capabilities of going down to Padre Road, and where the canal goes across the bridge there, we put these signposts in to build a grate, and we did catch a body there doing this. We've got a lot of stuff down there that you'd be surprised. This is over behind Pepsi, Gordon Plastics, Gordon Composites. Young person drowned in the pond down there before it was legitimate to swim in there. There's a lot of debris in the bottom of this thing that you can get hung up on. The day that started about midnight, we had a dive team from Mesa County come up. I believe they found him, and then about the time he was found, we got a call over on what's called Herman's Crest off of Highway 92 and Blue Mesa, which is just a little spot of Montrose County. And we went over and assisted the Park Service with getting a lady out of there that probably should never walk down that trail. So it was a long 2 days or a day and a half. How we did, we got 15 minutes. West End guys recovered a victim that fell over there. You know, West End, I can go anywhere because I have 4-wheel drive, I just can't never get home. I still have a complaint about this picture. This is a guy in the middle there in the dark. These are two of our members off the Divide Road. It was really cold that night. This guy took off chasing an elk across the road, and this is around the fence line area if you're familiar with it. We had 4 of our people track him out with GPS units that knew how to get back to the road, and we got him back to the road. I think he had 1 shot left in his gun. He'd been signaling for help, but he ran out of bullets, except for the 1. Got back to the road. We got him in a vehicle in a sleeping bag, and I gave him a pair of extra wool socks I have, and I still haven't got him back. Maybe I don't want him, but he was from Buena Vista area. This is over in Beach Valley area. These guys went in there motorcycle riding, and they got hit by a downpour, and they couldn't get out. And the guy was a diabetic, and he was in need to get his insulin. And we went in and got him and the motorcycle and hauled them all out. This is also, I believe, an assist in the Mesa County. This is back when, well, this is another call off of 25 Mesa and the Lee's Reservoir area, consulting with the DOW, and there was unfortunately, a young man that was shot. They thought it was a turkey. And we went back in to get his body out and investigate the scene. This is the way back in there. And this is actually the road. I wanted to go down to look for the other guy, and they kept telling me to go the other way. But this is back in there at the scene. He was back up in the bushes there. And one of our members, he needed to go through the car wash on the way home. This is kind of interesting. There was a couple that went missing. If you go up the road behind the corrections facility in Delta, you come out into this area, and a hunter had found some bones. Well, this couple went missing in the fall. Or earlier that year, they found some bones. I think they found her in the car, and I'll go walk for help. Well, he is also high on drugs, or possibly high on drugs, and ended up passing away. It was a really good find. We took some metal locators with us, and we were able to find his lower leg that had a bone, had a pin in his bone, and those pins are all serial numbered, so we could confirm that we had the right person. We did quite a sweep of the area and came up with it. Paul, you want to hurry on through there?
Yeah, that's motorcycle.
Motorcycle wreck, Beach Valley, carry out. This is the staging for the guy who was missing on Divide Road, and looking for his remains, but we found some things that we thought belonged to him, but we never did find him. And they brought in a cadaver dog and did some searches also. Down in Olathe, where the gentleman walked away from Colorado Care Center, we had boats and dogs and people and four-wheelers and cars, and we're back to carrying a backboard in the West End to bring this lady out. The only means of transportation right there, except for days like this. This is kind of a fire assist with Montrose, Olathe, and actually it's right on the river bottom below Ford Motor over here on north of town. This is out on, I think you might say railroad tracks, kind of north of Gunnison Road. What happens on Tuesday afternoon in Montrose? Oh, the train comes to town, and here it came around the corner. We're just drafting some water out of a pond. We do community service. This is something I want to mention, Paul. The vaccine clinic this afternoon. We have about 12 people scheduled to work the vaccine clinic here in Montrose, a couple in Olathe, and maybe a half a dozen in the Basin Clinic over in the West End. Take part in the crescent spray. We did security for the wall when I was here last. This is the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, that the county has. We've had a couple of times here with the latest with the Sims Mesa fire. We helped staff some of the EOC with, and man the phones, and setting up cots, getting ready for an overflow. Public awareness with the kids, and they get a kick out of coming down and seeing everything. give them a ride in the basket. Same way with the Civil Air Patrol cadets. Fundraising, we have an annual fund drive, community organization support. Here in the past, we've supported and worked at the car show. They gave us a really good donation back in 2017, which really helped fund some of this new equipment that we got. Our building, some of our equipment, we need an update on.
Stop there, please. Tell me, because I want to ask this question. 2013, that building was dedicated. Would you please tell us why and why it's named for the gentleman?
I'm not sure exactly what year it was. It was like 07, 06. We got a call for a guy that was deceased over on the north rim of the canyon. Well, all of you that have been to the north rim, there's no shortcut. So we went around, we met up with the rangers over there, and about halfway up the wall, this guy had a heart attack apparently, and passed away on the wall. We helped assist retrieve his body, bring him back to Montrose, and a couple of our folks got to know the family very well and helped arrange his transport back to his hometown, which is on the East Coast, and really helped the family out here. Later on, we found out that the family decided they would help us out and made a large donation in our name. Well, what happened was he owned several strip malls back east, and 08 came along, and we kept getting a interest payment. Every December we get a little interest payment, and we put it aside, and we already had the property that our building sits on, and I don't know why it looks so weird there, Paul, but so we had that property bought, and then pretty soon, one December, we got paid off totally, and it's like, okay, now is the time if we're ever going to build a building, and we had the money. So we went ahead and built the building, and part of the agreement was, it says Montrose County Sheriff's Posse, James Douglas McQueen Rescue Facility. That was to honor the gentleman that passed away. That's where that name comes from. And we were able to build a building and have enough in reserve to go ahead and pay utilities and a cushion. But in respect in him and his family, that's where the name came.
Basically, it's our building, but it belongs to the community. It'll stay with the community. We do training in it. The sheriff's department sometimes will come over and do some training in it. And it's a public building that is basically privately owned, but it's a great facility. We used to keep our equipment outside. Now it's all inside the stores. That's a.
So now I'm cutting you off because I have been told somebody else wants to speak.
Good morning, everybody. Those that don't know me, I'm Gene Lillard, Sheriff of Montrose County. One thing that I can say about these gentlemen and ladies that are our Montrose County Sheriff's Office posse, all volunteers, tremendous. They put in a ton of hours, and they can always be counted on. I can't say enough good things about them because what they do is absolutely tremendous, as you well know. So they're always looking for new members. We've got a lot. They've got some that are pretty young, and then we've got some that have a lot of knowledge. So with that, I will stop with that. But like I say, these guys are awesome, and the ladies and gentlemen that work for the Montrose County Sheriff's Posse are volunteers. So keep that in mind. So I have my undersheriff here, George Jackson, and Commander Ty Cox that are here today. Ty he oversees the posse, and there's a lot of times that we go out and help these guys, or they help us. So they are a godsend. Believe me, they really are. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Judy. Thank you.
First of all, can we have a round of applause for this? You guys have been tremendous this morning, and I know there are probably two people out there that are just dying to ask a question. Oh, this is terrible since it's my husband. Okay, ask quick.
Take it easy. From what I understand, some of the money off of the 25 cents that we pay in every year for our hunting license, fishing license, etc., you guys have a possibility going back and recouping some of the money that it costs you. Could you explain that a little better?
There's three, well, to complicate matters a little bit, the DOLA, they have run the program from initially up till December 31st. DOLA is Department of Local Affairs. Now the program is switched to Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They're going to take over the program. I'm assuming they're going to stick with some of the same rules or similar. If you have a hunting card or a fishing card, a hunting license, and you get lost, we go and find you, we can send some of that cost in to that, which is DOLA, now it'll be Colorado Parks and Wildlife, for a type or tier 1 replacement or reimbursement. Then they have a tier 2 if you go out and you, like Paul has a hunting license, his son gets lost, and we find his son, we can go back on his license as a tier 2, and tier 3 is at the end of the year, if there's money left over, and we have a big expense off a search somewhere, we might be able to send that cost in and hopefully get reimbursed part of that. Is that clear? Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time on our searches, we do not retrieve money because it isn't big enough and the paperwork is tremendous. But it is a help. For example, each year they put out an application, and if we want like the four-wheeler, we put an application. This year, I think they asked for the West End about $30,000 and they got 7. So it's only a partial reimbursement.
Another question, there we go.
Paul,
Yes, sir.
the Posse is willing to accept donations to you directly, right?
That's correct. By the way, we send out once a year a letter in the mail. It's asking for a donation. It's sent out on January 15th. Do not respond to phone calls about giving money to the posse or to the sheriff, because they don't do that.
So I respond by a donation every year. Paul and Jerry, by the way, thanks for your undying support for this community. But didn't there used to be a card you could buy? Because I don't hunt or fish. Was there a card or something you could buy that would go towards that?
Yes, there is a Carso. Carso, can't get it correct. What it amounts to, it's a hiking card that you can buy. I don't remember what the cost is, $25?
No, it's not even the same.
It's like
It's about $7 or $8.
$7 or $8 for the card.
Where do you get that?
CPW.
Well,
Search and rescue.
we can get you one. We sell them.
But that's just another method of donating, and we do appreciate your donations, trust me. We can't operate without them.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Phoebe is just dying, I can tell. Phoebe wants to tell you about next week, because guys, we start.